So, yes, I promised a video on the Teenage Liberation Handbook. So, a video on the Teenage Liberation Handbook from Grace Llewellyn you shall get. So the Teenage Liberation Handbook by Grace Llewellyn is a book that advocates something called unschooling. And what unschooling is, and this is a radical notion, is the notion that you should be in charge of your own education. And basically, it's also called child-centered learning, child-led learning. It's the notion that the kid should choose what they want to learn. And you may or may not agree with this, but when I was a teenager, I I really wanted to be an unschooler. So I actually came across the Teenage Liberation Handbook in 6th grade, and I read part of it, which actually weaves a very interesting argument as to why school does not basically breeds people who are complicit to very authoritarian situations. And it changed my life because from that day on, I desperately wanted out of school. And it made me want to do things that I wasn't supposed to want at that age. Like most kids want nothing more than to just go to high school and, have a regular life. But I wanted to like hike and travel and, you know, learn stuff and just do things that my present environment, I guess, really couldn't accommodate. Um, so I suffered massively, and I even considered killing myself. I thought of various methods that I could do to kill myself, but I couldn't really settle on one. And that's what saved my life in the end. I couldn't settle on a single suicide method that I liked. Um, so I decided to live. Another reason that I decided to live was because I read this essay that encouraged me to seek help for my suicidal thoughts. So I was never seriously suicidal, but I did have suicidal thoughts. Um, so I was homeschooled for a while in my middle school years, which was right after I'd read the handbook. But I was thrown back into a very school-like independent study situation, and in freshman year, and I didn't per se. I didn't have any suicidal thoughts that time around, but I was very depressed. I didn't show it, but I was. And it actually took my psychotic episode for me to stop being depressed. I don't credit the episode itself, but I do credit the meds that they put me on after the episode. And another thing that helped was that they put me in a very relaxed school environment after the episode. So, that helped too. But still, my dreams were basically crushed. And that was actually very hard for me to deal with. And it it took it took a lot for me to start dreaming of things again. And that was just a very hard period in my life. And I don't blame Grace Llewellyn or the handbook. I actually blame my own family and I blame my therapist because they could have easily put a stop to all this suffering by just finding a legal way to let me unschool. Because there are legal ways to unschool in all 50 states and California. They could have stopped a lot of my suffering, but they didn't. Um, and so it just didn't work out. Um, I also once heard from my therapist that she actually recommended that I be put on antidepressants, but that my mom never followed through because she thought that I was too young to need them. Which is bullshit, of course. I really did need them. But but who knows? I never when I asked my mom about the story, she denied it. So, who knows? So that's how the Teenage Liberation Handbook affected my life. Of course there were other factors at play like mental illness and family and stuff, but you know, you get the gist. And that's basically my story. So my next video is going to be about Jeffrey Dahmer. So stick around for that. I will see you next week, my loves. Bye. Oh, and like and subscribe.